And welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Buckeye Boggs. That man over there, that's the wild man, Chris Wild. And we are going to be answering the 4 questions, Chris, that we failed to get to Sunday evening that were great questions. We just had so much that we needed to talk about Sunday night that we never got to these questions. So, Ryan Days Beard, Frank Taraka, Derek Vance, and Nick Quint, your questions are going to be answered tonight. Chris and I are going to effort to do that right now. So, if you're new to the show, please hit the thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to the channel. It's absolutely free. It really does help us doing both those things right there. If you have a few seconds and you enjoy the content that we present to you tonight, put a comment down in the comment section. That also helps to get this out there into the Ohio State ether and the algorithm to get it in front of the eyes of more Ohio State fans just like yourself. And if you hate Ohio State and you're watching this out of your hate for the Buckeyes, we thank you as well. Your coin spins just as well as anybody else's. Chris, let's dive right into it. Let's start with Ryan Day's beard question. He says, I have to ask, how do we feel about the targeting call? What the heck is targeting? Because I don't think it's that. Now, this was Sunday evening when this question was asked. Since that question was asked, we have learned that Ohio State appealed to the Big Ten and the NCAA, and that call was reversed, which means that Arvell Reese will not have to sit out the first half against Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
But what is targeting?
Targeting is a problem, Eric, because it is too subjective.
Yes, it is a
It's
problem.
completely too subjective. I mean, if you look by definition, the rule says one form of targeting is obviously, and the most common known form, is when a player drops the head, hits with the crown of the helmet, head to head contact. That's the most common form of targeting.
I don't
And
even think
really,
it
the
has to be
one,
head to head.
it
I
doesn't
think it
have
just
to be,
yeah.
it can be dropping and leading with the crown. Now, with that, I don't have a problem necessarily with that as a rule. The issue lies for me when you start getting into the more ambiguous parts of the rule, such as if you cannot make contact to the head or neck of a defenseless receiver. Defenseless receiver is someone who is in the process of making the catch. So you're saying you cannot hit a receiver to the head or neck. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Anytime, and that applies to any defenseless player. Here's my question, and I've got two big issues with targeting. One of them is the subjectiveness of the rule. The other thing is, what about the offensive players who are dropping their heads to initiate the helmet to helmet contact? When are we going to start calling an offensive targeting call for those guys?
Yeah. Um that's a great question.
The rule is a joke at this point.
I mean, I can go back to 2019 when Sean Wade got ejected for targeting in the Clemson game, in the bowl game. And
Yeah,
if uh if Sonny uh what's his nuts, the quarterback there, I like to call him Sonny. Uh
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence hadn't ducked his head, it would have never been head to head contact.
Right.
He
And
would have hit
that's
him
the
in the
problem.
chest.
That's the problem with the rule is the subjectiveness and the fact that the offensive players actually permitted to initiate the contact by lowering their head. Um, so to me, targeting is really a joke at this point, and we are very lucky in the sense that that play and the subsequent ejection did not cost Ohio State the game.
Right.
Yes, it's all well and good that they've overturned this, but what are you going to do when that play costs somebody a game?
Oh, it already did. It already did. Twice.
And you're right. You're right. It actually cost Ohio State that national championship
Mm-hmm.
because there's no way they weren't putting a whooping on
TCU.
TCU. Uh,
The Georgia game is the one you're
yeah,
referencing
the
there, and of
Georgia
course
game is the one I'm
I'm
referring to.
referencing the Clemson game in 2019.
Right. But the fact is, you look at that, and I'm the first to always say no excuses. And do I believe that was targeting on Marvin Harrison Jr.? Absolutely. Um, but again, I always say no excuses. But you're right. Ultimately, it had a major impact on the game because if that targeting call stands, you're looking at first and goal from the 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that game really that next subsequent touchdown by Georgia is a moot point because they've got to score twice.
Right. Yep. You got it absolutely right. 100%. So I think that they're going to continue to try to refine this rule. They should. They should. Um, continue to refine it. They've made a few changes. Like, I don't think when you're ejected, you don't have to leave the field, like, or you don't have to leave the stadium and go to
Correct.
the
You don't have to
locker
go to the locker
room.
room.
You know, obviously that was stupid. Um, you don't have to. I think there's some things that they can continue to do to refine it to make it less ambiguous and to continue to improve it if indeed they're going to keep it, and obviously they are. Um, you've heard me say this for a while. You know, you've seen Ohio State and you've seen other colleges in the spring and even implement in practice now where they're wearing those protective units around the
And
shells
it's
around.
coming.
That's coming to a game near you, folks. I'm just telling you straight up. It's going to look very, very different. All right,
And
Frank
man,
Taraka.
if they had the insight that you and I know behind the scenes about
Yeah.
the helmets, that would be something completely different. Or the
Oh yeah.
mouthpieces is what it was, wasn't it?
It's a mouthpiece. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually, this summer, hopefully, we'll be able to
Share that a little bit.
share that with everybody. Frank Taraka, how many years in a row now do we not trust our O line to get 1 yard?
Eric, it's been 3 years.
Has it been 3 or has it been longer?
It's okay. It's been at least 3 years. Um, it's been awful, man. I don't know how. Now, this is the thing. Part of it I'm going to blame on the offensive line, but part of it I'm going to blame on the play calling. Because let me tell you, when you're 3rd and 1 and running from the shotgun, that's or the have a deep setback in the pistol. That's a problem, man. That's a problem to me. You've got a big physical quarterback. You should be just shoving that thing right that 1 yard. But yeah, I mean the offensive line has not been getting that kind of push. It seems to me more and more now, and I'm going to preface this by saying prior to the injury to Josh Simmons, we were getting a little better push off the offensive line, but they still weren't great in run blocking. We looked very good in pass pro, but in run blocking, man, we have not just had grinders out there who could just plow the road in
Mm-hmm.
quite some time. Not 5 across the front like we used to have.
Right.
And if you look, the last 3 years, and cheating aside, Eric, last 4 years, yeah, cheating aside, that team up north has gotten those hosses who are grinders.
Oh yeah. If you're going to compare us to them, then yeah, I agree with you 3. But I would say this issue for Ohio State is going on 4 years. However, before that started, and so the last year where I could
So,
say we would,
so what does that coincide to, by the way? You think about that 4 years. What does that really coincide
well,
to?
I'm wondering if you're going to agree with me here. The last year I felt like we could get a really good yard easily was J.K. Dobbins,
Yes,
2020. So 2020. So you had Dobbins and you had Justin Fields.
yes.
And since then, it has been a struggle. It has been a
And
struggle.
who recruited the offensive line and coached the offensive line? And who was
Justin
the head coach
Justin Fry and yeah.
during that time when we could get the yards?
Oh, it was
When,
Urban Meyer and
and
The offensive line
Coach
o-
Stud
offensive
and
line coach was
yeah.
Coach Strudara. Yeah, and of course when and so his last year was 2021, and
But it
he
really
did
wasn't.
it really wasn't because 2020 was really his last year before he started having back troubles, and we have been down ever since. Now,
Let's do the math. 2021, 22, 23, 20. Wow, Eric. That coincides with something you were just talking about. 4 years of not being able to get that yard.
hmm hmm and this and Chris, if people would go back in the archives and listen 4 years ago when we were talking about recruiting, you and I were talking about this very thing. We
Yes.
had recruiting misses on the offensive line, and we said it's going to catch up with us.
Yeah.
And here we are.
And it's great that we have all these 5-star guys at the skill positions. But if you can't keep your quarterback upright or create a hole for those fabulous running backs, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter how great your skill guys are if your offensive line is lousy.
Yep. I would love to see our fan base react to a 5-star commitment from an offensive line the way they do from the wide receiver position.
Oh, you might see my big old fat butt just doing cartwheels down High Street. We got a 5-star
Be,
offensive lineman.
be like Chris Farley, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So great question, Frank. That's a video all on its own this offseason. Our buddy Derek Vance, at what point will Buckeye Nation stop defending Ryan Day? He's one of the highest paid coaches in college football, and this is the product he puts out on the field during the big games. So let me attack this first, Chris, before
Oh, by all means.
jump on this one. By the way, I highly recommend if you're watching this and you did not watch Saturday night's live or Sunday night's live with us, go back and watch Sunday evening's live show, The Roundtable. Chris went off for about 15 minutes on Ryan Day. It was entertaining as heck, and I highly recommend it. The tide is turning in this fan base already. There was a vocal minority, led by the wild man over here, who, after the loss to the team up north last year, were already done. You were done. You admitted that. You were calling him John Cooper 2.0. And there was a pretty loud minority that was on that bus with you. After the 1 point loss in Eugene, and then the bye week followed by a 4 point win over Nebraska that's got literally this fan base panicking. The seats on that bus are filling up rapidly. And there's a lot of people, myself included, who feel like he's one big loss away from probably losing his job. Now, some might argue no way that's going to happen because the buyout's like 40 million or something like that. I don't think Ross Bjork has to worry about a 40 million buyout. That's half of what he found to buy out Jimbo Fisher down there in A&M land. And by the way, how's that going for them right now? Pretty good.
Pretty good.
So, and by the way, their most recent football hire, guess who hired him?
That'd be one Ross Bjork.
You got it. So the bus is filling up, Chris,
Mm-hmm.
and the tide is turning on Ryan Day. And this fan base, although I would say some are defending him, and they're making some good points. Um, a lot of people in this fan base have stopped defending him.
Yes.
So agree. I obviously you agree.
Oh, I completely agree. I've been done defending this guy since, like you said, that loss last year. And then after that bowl game, my God, Eric, I thought my head was going to explode after that bowl game. And I didn't want to even see him in spring practice this year. I wanted him fired before they took off from the tarmac in Dallas. I was so disappointed in that game. Um, I had no words at that point. And I think that we all had this bit of or maybe a quiet confidence that he was going to right the ship this year. He made the right moves in the offseason. He got the right guys. He got the right coaches. He said the right things as far as I'm going to give up the play calling. Everything to me was headed in the right direction. And then he goes out and he drops the ball against Oregon. He fields a team that has a lackluster performance. And when I say he dropped the ball against Oregon, by the way, it's not just the fact that they lost, it's how they lost. It is the way that there was very poor clock management at the end of the game. There was, I think, some really, we've seen some really questionable play calling by either the defense or the offense in consecutive games. And then that debacle against Nebraska, which I'll tell you, Eric, I really thought we were going to have you on here in a Speedo. I really did. It was not a comfortable feeling for any of us. And this week,
The Nebraska
and
game, or predicting, or envisioning me in a Speedo, or both.
both, and then you look at this week, and he's since retracted it somewhat, but he comes out and says he wants to start Zen Mahalski again initially.
Well, I think the feeling behind that is that he was showing the most progress in practice. And
Well, he couldn't have shown any less progress. I mean, he would have been going backwards.
no, what I'm saying is what they've seen in practice was not equatable to what we saw in the game. And go back and watch when he was thrust into the game in Eugene. He didn't do bad, Chris. Not like what we saw against Nebraska. But that's beside the point. The point here is that the fan base, a lot of people in the fan base are done defending him.
Well, yeah. And when he comes out and makes a bonehead statement like you want to start the guy who almost cost you the Nebraska game,
Well, I don't know that they have another option to go to. I mean, I think what they're going to do, if you ask me my opinion, is they're going to kick Jackson out.
I think they have to.
I, I, I don't think they have another option at this point.
Yeah, I think they've got to do that.
Which goes back to my initial fear at the beginning of the season, and what you and I have been preaching now for 3 seasons,
No
the
depth.
lack of rotating and getting guys in to get them game reps.
Yes.
This is what happens.
Yeah.
This is what happens. This isn't the NFL. Ryan, I don't I still Ryan has coached in college much longer than he ever coached in the NFL, but he still approaches things from an
He's
NFL perspective,
yes.
where these guys, they're not working 40-hour weeks here on football. They get 2-3 hours a
About
day
3 hours a
max.
day. 3 hours a day of practice time. Then I think they get a certain amount of weight room time as well. But it's not. Yeah. Anything outside of that is something that the players might do together themselves. But I don't even know what the actual guidelines are that limit that. So it's yes, I understand it's becoming the NFL light, but it is not there yet. And the other thing is, and I keep coming back to this, Eric, loyalty is a good thing, but not when it's going to cost you ball games. You can't be afraid to hurt the feelings when it's going to cost you ball games. And I really feel like that's still where we're at with Ryan Day, with players and with coaches. I still feel like that's where we're at.
Yeah, it's a very good possibility. All right, let's move on because the next one
Yeah.
is just the caboose to this train that is what everybody's probably here for. Nick Quint, say Day gets fired. What? Well, first off, let's answer that. What's going to take for him to get fired? I think if he loses the team up north, he's probably done. I think that's automatic.
Well, I think he's definitely done if he loses to the team up north.
I think if he were to lose this weekend or against Indiana or something and still beat the team up north and get to the CFP, they're probably not going to fire him. You
My
would,
take
but I don't.
is if he loses another game this season, at any point, he should be gone.
He should be, but I don't know that he will be.
No, I agree. You're probably right. But
Okay.
he should be gone if he loses another
So
game at any point this
so
season.
to answer this question though, we first have to answer that one and say what is going to cause him to be fired. I think it's another L to the team up north.
And again, we've had a couple different sources tell a couple different people on the show that the two different stories. I had heard that if they lost, if they lost a big game, another big game, he was done. JR's sources, and let me tell you, JR's sources are usually pretty good, have said that's not the case. But, if he loses certain games, he may be gone. Um, I really think they got to move on because what's going to happen is you're going to start losing donors, you're going to start losing the fan base if you don't move on from him. Should he lose again, the people are tired of it. Everybody wants to compare his record to Kirby Smart's record in the first 6 years. Difference is, within the first 6 years, Kirby had himself a chip. You talk about Urban Meyer, and I saw somebody say, well, he didn't get his first natty until he was 5 years in. Let me tell you something. If Gene Smith wasn't a bonehead, he would have had 1 year one.
Well, Urban won his third year in
Third year in. Yeah,
at
I
Ohio
know.
State.
I know.
Oh,
That just goes to the point of the idiot I was arguing with.
oh
But
well, I was gonna say
he won it
because
in
he was at
2014.
he's at Bowling Green for 2 years. Then he was at Utah for 2 or 3.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I was talking about at Ohio State.
Oh, okay, all right.
But yeah.
Um,
And they said, well, Saban didn't win one until he, you know what? Stop giving me this crap. The minute those guys got to a major program, they were immediately impactful.
right, and they're also comparing those guys to when they were coaching at other universities that never had an opportunity. Like, I don't care how long Nick Saban coached at Michigan State, he was not going to win a national
No,
championship there.
Urban was not going to win a national title with Bowling Green. Just wasn't going
Yeah,
to happen.
or Utah. Um, so it's a moot point. All right, so we've
Yes.
answered the first part. L against the team up north probably means he's not going to be retained. We shall see. He says, Nick says, I know this has been talked about before, but who would replace him? Now, there are 3 names that I'm dubbing them the big 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and why I'm dubbing them the big 3 is because they all have one thing in common, and that is they played their college years at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
2 of the 3 have coached at Ohio State. One of them extensively. Of course, I'm talking about Wisconsin's head coach Luke Fickell.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Vrabel has NFL experience, coached for the Tennessee Titans, was a successful coach of Tennessee Titans.
Was it
Currently,
DC for the Buckeyes?
he was
Oh,
he a
co-DC. What? He was
co-DC
co-DC
maybe, I think,
with Fickle.
linebacker coach.
With Fickle as head coach during the interim. He was either DC or co-DC. Yeah.
Um, and then retained by Urban for a season or 2, and then
Mm-hmm.
he left and went back to the NFL, and then has carved out a really good career for himself there. Argument against Vrabel is he doesn't like to recruit, and at least that's what people say about him. And all his success has been in the NFL, not necessarily in college, and so we don't know what kind of recruiter he would be. And then the other one is the guy who you absolutely disdain. However, I heard you say you would rather have him than Ryan Day at the moment. That's Marcus Freeman, who's sitting over there at Notre Dame. Now, those are the big 3. that I call the big three. The reason why I also call them the big three is because if you look at Ross Bjork's two hires he has made,
Yes.
actually three. He's made three hires that I know of. The girls softball coach,
Hmm.
and he stole the softball coach from the Miami of Ohio, and
Hmm.
she was very successful in the MAC, so he's given her shot in the Big Ten. But an Ohio hire, Ohio coach, meaning she's coaching in the state of Ohio.
Right.
The baseball coach. Now he was coaching at Campbell, which is in North Carolina.
Right.
However, he is from Ohio. He's an Ohio guy. Okay. And then the head basketball coach,
Deebs, of course. Yeah.
right? Jake Diebler, again, an Ohio guy. All three of those coaches had Ohio roots.
Which tells me he understands, Eric. He understands.
Absolutely. So he gets it. He gets it. So that being said, what we need to do is you always have to have those three, I think. Hey, keep that in mind. Now that doesn't mean he automatically is going to hire one of them. I think he has at least a phone call, which is more than Gene Smith ever did for Luke Fickell, by the way.
Yes.
But he at least picks up the phone and talks to all three of them, or at least someone, the agents of all three of them, to see if they would be interested. That's if Ryan Day were to get fired. Now, outside of that, I think there are a handful of names that are big names in college football or in the football world
World.
that some might say would be interested.
Okay.
Stoops, Ohio guy, hasn't been
We're
coaching in a
talking
while.
Bob, not Mark, right?
Right. Issue is how much gas is left in that tank.
He's what, 65,
It would be I feel that
66?
I feel that would be a
That'd be a 1 or 2
bridge
year,
hire,
or 2 to 3 year hire, probably.
which I'm not excited about that.
I'm not either,
It
but
does not get me excited.
unless there's a plan in place that they clearly lay out as a plan in place if you're developing your next head
Yeah.
coach.
Okay. Yeah, sure. That's why I said bridge hire. Stoops is one. All right. Nick Saban's the next one. Could you pull him out of retirement long enough to say, give us 2 years?
I think it'd be possible, but
I don't think so. I
I
really
don't.
don't.
I truly believe that Nick Saban retired on principle. I truly believe, as much as I dislike the man for all the winning he's done, and some of the things that may or may not have been questionable that they did down in the SEC years ago before it was legalized. Um, I truly believe he does not like the direction that college football is heading in, and I think he retired from the game on principle.
I agree with that. Um,
And again, homeboy's pushing 70 years old.
yeah. He's over 70.
Is he
Yeah,
over
he's like
70 now?
72. He's 72.
Is he that
Yeah.
old?
Yeah. That's why I don't think he's I just don't think it's gonna happen.
I remember he was a grad assistant with Earl Bruce at one time, wasn't
Yeah,
he? Yep.
yeah. Um, so okay, whatever, right? Like that it is what it is. 61-year-old John Gruden
You know,
hasn't coached since 2021.
I'm scared of John
Got in
Gruden.
a little trouble with some emails that were a little bit of racial that got him out of coaching.
He's a great
Um,
college coach, or a great pro coach, rather. I
yeah,
thought he did a good job in the pros, but I
he
don't
has
know.
he flirted with Ohio State before Urban.
Mhm. He did.
That's on record.
But how
Um,
many miles does he have left as well? I mean,
again,
he's how
he's
old? 60.
61.
Oh, he's only
He's
61.
61. He's 61. So you're
He could give
looking
you. He
at
could give you 5 or 6 years.
yeah, I think he'd give you yeah, I think so.
He could go as many as 9, probably. But
I don't I don't think he would, but he could.
yeah,
Um so those are the is there any other big name
you,
in college I'm missing? Like
you didn't say it.
don't say Um, Dan Lanning. I've heard people throw out Dan Lanning.
No, but you
No,
didn't say it. You didn't mention the former coach.
Urban
Again,
Meyer.
a bridge higher, but
You're right. Urban Meyer would be a bridge higher, but again, I don't know. Um, I, Dan Lanning's not going to be hired. He's not going to leave
no.
Oregon for Ohio State.
Now
If
I'll
he's
tell
not,
you,
if he's not going to leave Oregon for Alabama, which
he's
he coached at before he went to Oregon, he's not going to leave Oregon for Ohio State.
he's got a
Uh,
good thing going in Oregon. He really
right.
does.
Kirby Smart, not going to leave
No.
Georgia for Ohio State.
What
And
about?
I
Okay.
can only tell you, in my head, I can only think of one other coach right now in college football that I would consider.
You're going to say it, aren't you?
Who?
Are you going to talk about the person you talked about the other night, or are you going to talk about another big name that's out there right now?
Another big name.
A hot one.
Yeah, he's hot right now.
You're talking about Signetti, aren't you?
No, I don't want Signetti. I'm going down. I'm going down to Texas A&M.
I could see that. Somebody who I think maybe, I think does really well with the limited talent he has. And we talked about him before. The shine isn't quite what it was before, but again, he's not got a lot of great. What about Matt Campbell?
He's an Ohio guy. Well, he's not. He's not the big name though. That's
He's
not a
not a
huge
huge
name.
name.
Mike Elko. Mike Elko is a big name. You want to know why he's a big name?
Hit me.
He makes $7 million right
Yeah.
now, so it would be a huge buyout. He has got the A&M program turned around. The A&M boosters who have just as much money as Ohio State, or if not more, are not going to want to see this guy go. He, like Signetti, has never had a losing record as a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get his opportunity to be a head coach until later in his career. He spent let me see. He spent 21 seasons as an assistant coach before he got an opportunity to become a head coach. Yeah, he's 47. He's 47 years old. That's prime.
That's an attractive name and age for.
He would be one I would be interested in, but I think trying to pull him from A&M would be really difficult. Kurt Signetti, it would not be hard to pull him from Bloomington. However, he's 63 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right, and the age is up there. Well, I love his fire. I do. As much as I despise some of the things that come out of his mouth, I love his fire.
I he's
He's kind of very Gruden-esque to me, except
he what when he got there and grabbed the microphone and said we suck. That's Marcus Freeman never even said we suck.
yeah.
Okay.
But Marcus Freeman should have known better than say anything.
To me, those are the big names.
Yeah.
That are out there.
I'll tell you what. I did a little research. I like your little name.
You want to bust that one out?
No, go ahead, Eric. This was your find. You get credit for this one.
Well, is it South Dakota State?
South Dakota State.
Yeah, South Dakota State has a football coach that is he's got a funny name. You would think he's a country singer.
Yeah.
But you need to go learn who this guy is. His name is Jimmy Rogers. Okay. And Jimmy Rogers, as a Division I football coach, is 21-2. He's 37 years old. He went 15-0 last year, his first year as a head coach there for the Jackrabbits in South Dakota State. Won the Division I AA, whatever we call that now. I don't even remember. It's what we used to call it. It was Division I AA, but
1AA.
It's not called that anymore. I forget what they call it, but anyways, he won last year the national championship. They're 6-2 this year, so he's won 21 of his first 23 games as a head coach. He's a defensive guy. Listen, his alma mater. He's coaching his alma mater. It's where he played.
Yeah.
So pulling him from there is not going to be easy. But we are Ohio State, and we
Mhm.
have all the money in the world, and so the buyout's nothing. And he's not hardly. I don't even know what his contract is right now. I can't imagine it would be high. Let me look that up real fast. But so what did you think of him?
I like him. He's Tressel-esque,
Yes.
and I think we all can agree
All
that
right. You want to know what he's making
Tressel may
currently?
be the most beloved guy in Ohio State history, arguably next to Woody Hayes.
Here's his salary right now. You ready?
Mhm.
$310,000.
I think we could beat that, Eric.
So I'm
I think we could more than match
now,
that.
you'd say that is a risk. That's a risk hiring him. Yeah, it is. But I think he is going to be somebody in the coaching circle that is going to be a big name down the road.
Now, I know you don't like to go down this path. You don't even like to discuss down this path. But I mean, there's also a few guys out there who don't have necessarily the head coaching experience, but have some coaching experience,
Hmm.
who I think, guys who are younger, who, now one of them I've heard thrown around. I think he would have to go through an OC position before he got to a head coach. But if you're going to bridge it over and you're going to bring back like an Urban or somebody to bridge it, what about the assistant up there in Detroit? Your boy,
Are you talking
JT
about
Barrett.
JT Barrett? No way.
Just saying.
You no, there's no way. And
Bring him
the
on.
other
Bring him on as an OC. Have him work with Urban
now,
for a few
yeah,
years, and
I don't mind bringing him on in the coaching staff, but not as
well, but what I'm saying is bring him on while you have an Urban there to bridge it through, or a Saban or whoever you can get as a bridge coach, Stoops, you know, and
if
bring
they're
this
gonna
guy
do
up.
that. If they're gonna do that, it's gonna be for Brian Hartline or James
Well,
Laurinaitis
you would
or
like to think so, but you know what? And here's another name that I really like, and I kind of despised a couple weeks ago. But what about Will Stein, OC out of Oregon?
what's
I mean, he's a young guy, played
yeah.
quarterback at Louisville. He's the offensive.
God, he's younger than us, Chris, by
He's
a lot.
35. He's
Yeah,
35. He's an OC and quarterback coach for Oregon. If you're
he
going to get rid of
needs
Ryan Day, what do you need? Somebody who knows what? Two things: offense and quarterbacks, right?
he needs more. He needs to refine himself as a head
He's
coach.
coached at Texas.
He needs to go to a
He's
G5 school and refine himself first.
see now, and I think that line of thinking is why we could end up missing out on some of the hot prospects down the road.
Well, I this is the type of job. I've heard it said before. I agree. And now I think we've
But wait a
learned.
minute, you were in favor of Ryan Day learning on the job, weren't you? Aren't you the
No.
one who kept telling me you've got to give him some grace? He's
Yes.
learning on the job.
Yes. I
No,
no.
you
Hold
can't
on.
have it both ways,
No.
Eric.
Hold on. No. I didn't say I was in favor of it. I said because he got hired, we had to. So
We
I
don't
was.
have to do anything.
Yeah, you do. You do now. We did for 6 years. No, what I'm getting at is, um, you're allowed to learn lessons. Ohio State is not the job for you to learn on the job.
Ohio State's learned a valuable lesson.
Yeah.
They got a coach who can't beat anybody that's ranked above sixth. You can't win a national title if you can't beat a team ranked above number six.
Okay. And before I can hear people in the comments. Lane Kiffin is a no for me, dude.
Lane Kiffin is, if there was ever a John Cooper potential, it's Lane Kiffin.
Lane Kiffin
I
is
don't know that he's got Cooper potential. At least Cooper, you know, won
Lane
most games
Kiffin
that weren't against Michigan.
Lane Kiffin is
He's a
would be
flake for one thing.
he would be a train wreck in Columbus, Ohio. I'm just saying.
Lane Kiffin would be here for about a week before he tried to bail out, probably.
So no on Lane Kiffin. Absolutely not.
What
Um,
about who is it? Was it Mullins? Dan Mullins? I mean, I'd heard somebody mention him. I personally don't like the idea, but I'd heard it mentioned on a thread, whether it was on Twitter or whether it was on Facebook. I
what's
heard
he
somebody
doing?
mention him.
What's he even doing these days?
Isn't he doing analysis now?
Yeah,
He's an analyst
he's
somewhere.
not even coaching. Was he? He
You
was
know what?
Urban.
Neither's Urban or Nick Saban, but you'd take them, wouldn't you?
Well,
But they both got chips.
yeah, Dan Mullen doesn't have
In fact,
anything like that.
Saban's got a whole daggone bag of chips.
Um, so as you can see, the the response some people have to this question, and we've spent way too much time talking about this, but thanks, Nick. It's all your fault, Nicholas Quint.
By the
Um,
way, Vicar Vrabes is still my guy, though.
Vicar Vrabel.
Vicar Vrabel.
Um, but let me get to my final point. The comment that most people make when we get to this topic, who are you going to get that's better, right? There is some validity to that. We just went down the list.
Well, here's the thing, Eric. I don't know that you're going to find anybody that's a better mind. Okay? I'm not going to dispute that. I think Ryan Day is an offensive genius who has lost his guts when it comes to calling a game. But I think you are going to find people who can get more out of the talent that is there. And that's where I think we're struggling. We are not developing and we are not getting the maximum out of the talent that's there. You look back at guys who weren't even, I think, as good a coaches as what Ryan Day is. Guys like Mark D'Antonio. But what did Mark D'Antonio do really well? He took those 3-star guys and he got the most out of the talent that he had. I look at a guy like Matt Campbell at Iowa State. I think he gets the most out of the limited talent that he has. And that's what a great coach does. And everybody can say, well, their records aren't as good. Well, no, their records aren't as good. They don't have a team full of 5-star athletes. I mean, but they get the most out of what they got. I go back and think of the great Wisconsin teams, Barry Alvarez's teams. Same thing. He got the most out of his players. And I think that's what guys, and even I would make that argument for Fickle when you look at what he had at Cincinnati. He didn't have a great team, but he got the most out of the athletes he had. And that's where Ryan Day, and I think that's honestly where a lot of his assistants also fail.
Hmm. Another name that just came to me that people might be intrigued by, Cliff Kingsbury. He's got experience in
He
college
does, and pro.
and pros. Never
Um,
won a big one.
no,
Considered an offensive mind.
yeah,
Former quarterback.
he was the architect of that air raid down there, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, well, he wasn't an architect of it, but yeah, he knows how to run
Yeah.
it. Anyways, interesting discussion. Way too premature, but you asked it, so we delivered. And I know a lot of people are going to hate the answers we gave. They just are. I know how people are, Chris. You're never going to be able to give the exact good right answer when you talk about this, but we did it anyways. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Um, anyways, hopefully we don't have to worry about that. Hopefully Ryan Day rights the ship, wins the rest of the games. We are celebrating a national championship at the end of this year, Chris, and all is right with the world. That is my
It
hope.
buys him a 1-year reprieve.
If he wins a national championship,
Yes.
you're on a year-to-year basis, aren't you, brother?
That's the faith I've got in this guy right now.
Woo! Jeez. Harsh. He is harsh, folks. That's why he's the wild man. I am Buckeye Box. Thanks for watching. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share the video, ring the bell, get notified when we go live. All those great things. Till next time, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH. Sing Carbon High with all your heart. Chris, you know what to do. OH.
I